I'm going to make a very simple Seax out of this piece of steel. I think it's stainless steel, I can't actually remember, I bought it quite a long time ago. So it's going to be roughly that shape. A couple of minutes with an angle grinder, and then we'll go to the bench grinder. There's the basic knife. If you're thinking that's unusual for a Seax, actually it's not. They weren't all that sort of angular, broke back style. In fact, as I covered in another video, really I think to call them a Seax is not entirely correct. There were so many different blade shapes, but that's a much more sort of, I think, traditional looking Seax. Let's put an edge on it. And to do that, I'm using this bevel jig. Now, a lot of bevel jigs are ferociously expensive. This one was 20 quid off Amazon. Don't like Amazon, but it works, and it's fairly cheap. So that's got the beginnings of the edge on it. At this stage it's not completely sharp, and one thing I have forgotten to do, because I'm going to leather wrap the handle, is just take just a millimetre or two just off there, so the leather will sit in there quite nicely. Let's do that. Right, the next stage, heat treat. Let's put it in the forge. And cover it up properly, and make sure everything gets hot. And then comes my favourite bit. So we need that now to get to the stage where it's either a sort of dull orange and is non-magnetic. So I've got a magnetic pickup tool. Still magnetic. We'll keep going. And then the final test. That skates quite nicely. So that's done. On to the second stage of the heat treat. At this stage, this is very hard, but very, very brittle. I really wouldn't, well, I have dropped them in the past, it doesn't actually shatter, but it's not very good. So, to realign all those little molecules, it gets 2 hours in the oven, then we let it cool down, and it gets another 2 hours. So that's had its 2 hours in the oven first of all. We're looking for that sort of straw colour, so that's gone absolutely right. Now the next method I've seen is to cool it in room temperature water. There are, you know, you have a look at heat treating stainless steel. There's as many people with as many different ideas as you could imagine. You know, there's thousands of different ways of doing it. This is the way I'm doing it because it's one I'm familiar with. So this will then go back in the oven at 200 degrees for another 2 hours. I'm going to wrap the handle in leather. I was thinking of getting this forge scale off, and the way to do that, if you want, is to soak it overnight in white vinegar. But I thought it just looks a bit more authentic than that, like that. So I've made a start just there. This is super glued into place, and it'll go eventually around the whole handle. It's not a very wide handle still, but never mind. And I'm just going to keep on wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. That's it done. The clothes peg is just holding the end down, and I held the end down here to let that dry as well on this piece of leather. So I've blinged it up a little bit, taking a little edge off there because that was quite sharp. I'm going to put an edge on it, and the handle's now wrapped up to stop it getting filthy. And there's the stone. Old school. So after about an hour, I've forgotten how long it takes to actually sharpen something on a stone. I've got this sharp. Which at the moment will do. My back is killing me. So in keeping with the very simple theme, we're going to make a very simple sheath. So that's the simple shape. It's all riveted together. I thought, yeah, no, don't look at that bit. I thought I had some brass rivets, but I haven't. So that will fold over there, rivet, 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 and then cut round to make it look a bit sort of older fashioned. I'll show you what I mean. And tidy up and trim and things, but it's getting there. Let's put the poppers on. I'm sure it's the right way round, that way. So it's two pieces, one through there, one through there. Turn it over. Special peening tool. Not very special hammer. Put together, unput together, done. So there we have one sheath. It's not very good though, but it'll do as a sheath. I'm not a sheath maker. I do struggle with that. I suppose this could have been a bit thinner and moved over there a bit further. But there we go, sod it. I've made it, I'm quite happy with it. So after a little bit of work, that's what the sheath looks like now. I basically trimmed it up on my bench grinder, who knew? But I'm definitely much happier with that. The staining isn't great, I'll get some more and finish it off. But that, I think, is a transformation. That's the finished item. I'm generally pleased with the sheath, which is, I'm not keen on making sheaths, I don't know why, but it's decorated it a bit. There's nice stamps there, and that's come out with the leather staining that I've tried to do. So the knife itself. Now, it is thin. I mean, this steel's 5mm steel. With the wrapping, it's probably, I don't know, roughly 7mm thick handle. It's more comfortable than you'd think. It has sort of some shock absorbing qualities. A lot of the ones you can get now are basically a sort of stick tang that wraps round, and there is no sort of wrapping around it. They always look and feel much better if you do put a piece of leather around it. There's some thinking that the hollow handled ones may have had some organic material as a sort of decoration, possibly wood, but I've only seen that reference once, so don't take my word for it. And it might be a slightly unusual shape for a Seax. Most people think of the Seax as a much more angular, the broken back type Seax, but go back to this little booklet here, which is the sort of encyclopedia of Anglo-Saxon knives, frankly. You see, these drawn the shapes of the blades that have been found so far, and there's quite a lot of them, and there's quite a variety in shapes, and there's more. So pretty much every shape you can imagine has been found sort of between the 5th and the 10th century. That's it. There's also some other little knives in there, but it's generally quite an interesting little book. But it is going to show that the standard sort of brokeback Seax is not perhaps as widely distributed as we would have thought. In fact, there would obviously be no central. These are all made by a single village blacksmith. There would be no standard pattern. It was basically whatever he could get hands on, and of course what you could afford. It's unlikely many people would have had more than one of these. They would have been expensive again. They would have been made of iron rather than the steel that this one is, and it would have been a multi-purpose tool. I've said previously that I came across a Saxon poem where they were slightly dismissive of people who got out their Saxes and used them instead. That doesn't seem to be quite as much the case for the Anglo-Saxons, and this is a fairly smallish one. Some of them did resemble, 2 foot long, 18-inch long small swords, but this would have been much more, I think, the type of thing that people would have carried, because it would have just been a multi-purpose tool. You would have cooked with it, you would have prepared food with it, you would have chopped up Vikings with it. This is the slightly blingy aspect of things that I do like. And that then is the Seax that I made, and probably one of my favourite Saxes. I'm going to try doing a few more styles from this little book, see how it goes. But this is a surprisingly useful knife, given how thin it is. It's not as uncomfortable as you'd think, and again, not that difficult to make, really. Do have a go. Right, I've said it was a very comfortable knife to use. Let's go and see what it'll do.